Detroit Pistons select Luke Kennard from Duke University.
Bang! Samaje Christian, 3.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to another episode of the Triple Double podcast. Thanks to those who have been listening so far. Hopefully we've got some new listeners, and we've got a really special guest today. Before we hop into it, I want to remind you guys one thing, which is that we are still working on a little bit of a questions and answers episode. So if you do have any questions you want to submit to the podcast, we will go over them. You can submit those to TDP Corey. That's Corey with an E, Corey, at gmail.com. Our guest today is also named Corey. Corey Tucker, one of the top guys in Ohio in AAU basketball, over a decade of coaching AAU basketball, has also coached at the high school level, at the junior college level. Tuck, what's the word, man?
Hey, Corey, what's going on, brother, man? Thanks for having me, man.
No problem, man. We got another A-list guest for the listeners. You know, in basketball, you got the one-name guys. You got Shaq, Kobe, Braun, Magic. We got Tuck. So that's how he's known in Ohio. And we're happy to have him, man. So if, for the guys who aren't aware of the legend that is Tuck, man, why don't you just give us a quick overview of who you are and what you do in basketball?
Well, I've been around doing basketball, high school basketball. I started in 2003. I was at Toledo Woodward. I was there for 4 years. Coached varsity for 2. Did freshman for 2. So I was the head varsity coach there, and I won state coach of the year there when I was there for 1 year. Then went on to the JUCO. I did JUCO for 8 years. Over at Owens Community College, I was there for 3, and then I was at Cincinnati State with Andre Tate. But throughout the whole process, I've always done AAU. Started off in the independent circuit, just Jimmy Jackson's team, Toledo. Kind of worked my way up around the OBC and now with All Ohio, and now I'm back. Kind of, brought the high school back into me, and now I'm back over now. I'm at Winton Woods now, coaching over there now. So it's exciting, but AAU has always been a part of all of it, no matter whether I was JUCO or high school. AAU has been a constant in my life, so it's definitely been fun.
Cool. Well, we're going to talk a lot about AAU today, but I invite you on the podcast to go over all the AAU stuff you've done. And did you intentionally skip over the year that we spent together coaching All Ohio Gray? Has that memory been wiped out of your mind?
Never, because I just got a ticket to sponge up my record from those days of me and you riding up and down the highway, going 90 miles an hour just to get to a venue or a gym and getting ticketed. So no, I definitely have not. And those were great years because the next year we both went on the Adidas circuit, but in 2 separate directions. So, I think it kind of laid the foundation for what we did the next couple of years. So yeah, absolutely.
No doubt about it, man. It certainly was great. It was a great learning experience for me back then. And, we've talked a lot with different scouts on this podcast about paying your dues. And, that year operating as kind of a B team, not a B team in terms of talent, but in terms of resources and, not being the red team with Ohio, we certainly learned a lot. And I appreciate that. But I want to talk about AAU a lot. But we're going to jump ahead here, and we're going to start kind of with where you are now. I want to talk a lot about really the Nike EYBL. And I think everyone who listens to this podcast has an idea of what the Nike EYBL is. But, starting back when you were doing independent AAU, and then at that time, 2010, 2012 or so, when we were doing it, shoe circuits weren't near what they are now. But, how has your career evolved to where, you now have the opportunity, but also make the decision to be a part of a shoe circuit such as the Nike EYBL?
Well, at the time, me and you were, fighting independence, just trying to, had a group of hardworking kids, very talented kids, that were, most of them were Division I level, and most of them ended up going on Division One, but just weren't able to get. What I saw was the resources were always going to be for the shoe company teams. Like, you're limited to what you can do if you're not a shoe company team. I heard your podcast last week with ND, and I think what he's done is amazing in that area. And that's why I love the name Pocket City, that little pocket of Indiana. He's got a great thing going, but even he had to send his best young team to a shoe company circuit team. So it's kind of like you're limited by your resources. So after our independent year, I was able to kind of link up with Mike Duncan and coach his freshman group with Carlton Bragg and those guys and Craig Randall. And then kind of evolved from there, me going to 17 with Antonio Woods, David Bell, Justin Bibbs. And then I was able to have a very great group with Jaron Cumberland, Carly Jones, Jabari Hall, and ended up being Seth Towns and Travell Beck, and so on and so forth. So Frankie Hughes. The list goes on and on as far as that was concerned. But that's where I got to have my most success in the shoe companies with that kind of 3-year span. And then the EYBL is the EYBL. It's the toughest circuit out there. And if you want to cut your teeth on something, you want to call yourself a competitor, you want to go against the best. And the EYBL is the best of the best. So the opportunity was presented to me by Jerry and by John Stovall to come on over and see what we could do over there. And it's been a different run for the last 3 years. Our first year was really good, and last year was really good as well. This year's been a little bit difficult, but every year ain't gonna be great. You just got to kind of fight through. But it's been fun. It's always a challenge over there. Always a challenge.
Sure, and it's going to be a challenge, in Ohio when you have a class that, you're always going to have top-end talent, but you have a class that might not be as deep. And with us in Ohio having 3 shoe circuit teams right now, 1 on each of the major 3, with some other really good programs. We try to have one with my group of Cincinnati Lakers. You look at something like an Ohio Nova Village, a TNBA, and there's plenty of competition. But, what stands out to you specifically? You talked about the competition level of Nike, but, from an unbiased standpoint, I've seen all the circuits. I've been to multiple events in all the circuits over. I've been to all the circuits this year, and I think the talent tends to be a little bit. It's relatively even. Nike might have a slight edge, but what's different about the Nike EYBL to me is the organization of it. They do such a good job with throwing so many resources on it, and everyone knows again what the EYBL is in terms of the structure, in terms of the exposure opportunities, but day to day, going through it, coaching in it, helping get guys to come playing. And what are some of the things about the EYBL, some of the positive things that you run into that maybe someone who follows recruiting or a parent or even a college coach who only goes as a spectator essentially might not know?
Well, what you get from my opinion with the EYBL is this. You get kids who come over from Under Armour and from Adidas, and they want validation. A lot of these kids seek validation through rankings. They seek it through offers. When you come to the EYBL or you get the opportunity to compete in the EYBL, you're looking for that validation. So a kid who, let's take Alonzo Gaffney, for example, played for all Ohio Red 17 years. Zoe had an unbelievable run last year on the Adidas circuit, and probably could have went back to the Adidas circuit and been another dominant force over there. But he chose to come over here to our side to kind of seek that validation that everything he put the work he put in last year was kind of validated with us. And he's had a great season so far for us. He's done a great job of carrying that 17U team. We didn't qualify, of course, but Zoe, by no fault of his own, played extremely well and played extremely hard every time he was out there. So I think some kids seek validation. For me, it was a matter of the competitor. Just want to get out there and compete. I think that, the talent level in this class and in the 2020 class, there's not much separation when you talk about the state of Ohio. So you've got a few guys up top, and then there's not much separation between 3 and 6 on the skill level side, on the athleticism side, and just overall. So you struggle in Ohio to find, like you said, with the 3 shoe companies. You got Cincinnati Lakers who get predominantly you in my opinion have 2 or 3 shoe company kids on your team, like kids that should be playing for shoe companies or could have played for shoe company teams. Nova has a handful of themselves, so you run into that. And for me, Ohio's not big enough for you to have three shoe companies, and then you've got these other teams that are picking away at it. It's difficult for you to go out there when you're competing against a Texas, where you got all those people, Florida, New York, Chicago. These kids, they can reach out in their back pocket, drop a kid, and then pick up another kid that's better. But the EYBL brand and the way that it's set up in a way that ultimate competition from the moment you get on the floor, no matter whether you're playing 15s, 16s, or the 17, which is a true EYBL formula of you play a set schedule for 4 weeks. I told a guy the other day, we work as a recruiter. I work for 300 and something days a year for 2 to 3 weekends. And if we don't do what we're supposed to do in those 2 to 3 weekends, my 300 plus days have been for naught. So, it's a grind. Yeah, it's a constant grind, and it's a constant trying to get better, and trying to find a way to get to that peak jam down in Augusta, because we as a program feel like that's where you get the most. That's where you get your exposure from. That's where you see all.
That's where you get your. That's where you get your final validation. You talked about validation. There's kind of levels to it of, let's say, Alonzo Gaffney's a kid, like you said, who already had some notoriety to him, but there's a kid, and I wish I could think of his name. I mean, no one, I don't think, listening to this one knows his name anyway, but there was a kid from Mac Irvin this year that, nobody knew him, and he took the first step of hopping into the EYBL, and then he, became a top 150 guy, and then he played well at Spieth, and now he's like a top 50 guy, and that's certainly one of the benefits to the EYBL. But I want to go to your point on a state like a Texas, or the greater New York, New Jersey area, California. Although the California teams, from what I've seen, don't have the success this year maybe as they've had in the past. But Ohio, like we said, there's only so many kids. 2018 was a class with a whole lot of good players, so it could support multiple teams on the shoe circuit trail. But this year, 2019, the top of the class is very good. There might not be as many Division I players as in the past, and it does hurt. And we've talked with AAU guys, and I've talked with you privately on how to build a team at that circuit level. And everybody says, well, you don't want to have 10 killers. You got to have 6 killers and 4 guys who are going to play their role. But the problem being that when you run into the Texas, they can get kids who are killers that'll play a role, because there's so many good players in that state that, states like Ohio, although we have a good population in Midwestern states, it's a very, very different game than what you look at as a Texas or a Florida or New York.
No, absolutely. When we get to the 17U level, we don't count, okay, we got this kid, that. We count what level you're at. So you've been a scout for years, high major, mid major. We feel like in order for you to compete in EYBL and be competitive, you have to have 3+ high major kids on your 17U team. You take a look at our 17U team last year. You had Mr. Basketball of Michigan, Mr. Basketball of Ohio. You had Thomas Kittiger, who was going to Michigan State. You had Vince Williams, who's going to VCU. You had Jordan Mitchell, who at the time was a 16, but was also a high major kid. So we had 4 or 5 high major kids, and we had 2 Mr. Basketballs on the team. And that was a team that didn't even get to the Sweet 16 of the EYBL Peach Jam down there in Augusta. So, those are things that we look at when we're trying to put together a competitive 17U team. Now, you go to Florida, they've got high major kids just coming out the wazoo. So it's tough in Ohio because you've got so many people fighting after so few kids. So that's why you have to try to differentiate yourself and have something different than what everybody else has, because maybe that's going to be the key to getting that kid who can get you over the hump.
You got to have you got to have chemistry. You got to practice. You got to have set roles, and you got to have some kids who are tougher and some kids who have a higher basketball IQ. And I mean, you said you hit those guys on the head with those accolades, and that's great. But, if you look at some of the other kids that played on that team or some of the Ohio teams that have and have not gone to the Peach Jam, it's not always the most talented team that goes because, in the EYBL coming from Ohio, if you're going to try and out-talent people, you're not going to win on the EYBL. You gotta put the coaching aspect into it. You got to put the chemistry aspect into it because you have no chance to compete with those teams off of pure talent and not even just pure basketball talent, but, things grow bigger in Texas, literally. Those dudes are grown men.
Yeah, that saying came from somewhere, and wherever it came from was true. Because, absolutely, that team last year was Deshaun Parker, a road guy going to James Madison. Braden Norris, a road guy, knockdown shooter, high IQ, going to Oakland University. So,
but one of the smallest kids in the EYBL physically, so. Those are you got to get kids who are winners.
Yeah,
you got to get kids
and
who are
that's
winners.
Key quality. It's one of the hardest things to do is grab a kid who's on a high school team. He's the best player, and your team is 2-22. And you're scoring all the points because you wonder, does the kid know how to win, and does he know how to play with good players? So that's difficult.
No doubt about it. But that goes into kind of the next topic I wanted to talk about, and winning. And there's great priority. One of the major criticisms in AAU when I started doing this on a decently high level, maybe 2010, was that games don't matter, and the shoot circuits have gone a long, long way. Nike's probably at the forefront of it in terms of value in winning, and that gets to talking about how college coaches perceive the circuit. And I think we talked a little bit about this on our first podcast with Chaz, but I really want your take on it as somebody who's involved with Nike EYBL on a day-to-day. There's some positives with the EYBL for college coaches being you're always going to get to see the kids play against top competition in an organized, structured game, oftentimes with at least some semblance of a scouting report. But there's also two, not negatives, but potential areas for failure in my eyes. The first one is the classic overhyped. And what I talk with Chaz about is there's a perception from mid-major and low-major college coaches of I'm recruiting kid X, and he's a really, really good mid-major player. But if he has one or two big games in the EYBL, oh shit, this high major that's only seen him once or twice is going to think that he plays like that every day. They're going to offer him. That kid's going to end up going to high major. It's probably not going to be a good fit. He's going to come back and you get that overhyped. That's number one. Number two, and the one that I have seen this in the EYBL in the Midwest. I don't know a whole lot about the teams outside of this, but some of the fringe kids, I think, this is almost a separate topic, but some of the fringe kids, the kid who's the 9th or 10th guy on the bench, he's not playing a whole lot in the EYBL. Sometimes they get forgotten about because one trend I've definitely seen this year, last year on the circuit is that the low major and Division II coaches are going less to the Nike EYBL. They're going to the side events trying to find sleepers, thinking, well, this kid's in the EYBL, I can't get him. But then you get to a point where if you're a Division II kid or a low major kid and you don't get the offers you really want at the Division I level, you're kind of shit out of luck with the Division IIs because they're targeting another kid. So, how do you really balance that with Ohio, with just the perception of the EYBL amongst college coaches?
Well, that's a great question, Corey, because you got to look at it from those schools, the low major guys and the Division II schools. They really rely a lot on two things. One, they rely on guys like you, like Zach, like TJ, like Chaz to kind of get them the information that they need on the guys that they're not going to see. And then two, they also rely on relationships. They rely on the relationship with coaches, program directors to be able to say, hey, well, tell me what you got for me. And they're hoping that the coach or the director tells them the truth about these kids and not try to overhype these kids. I think a lot of times you get directors who just want to see their kids go as high as possible or just want to get them into a Division I school as opposed to what might be a better fit for them as a Division II school. So I think that these low majors and Division IIs rely a lot on those two things. The scouting services like yourself and like all the other guys we know about, and they rely on the relationships with the coaches and with the directors that hopefully they're telling them the truth about it. Now, the other part to your question is that, yeah, sometimes these kids at the end of the bench, especially when you talk about younger kids, 15s and 16s, not so much 17s sometimes, but you do get that kid who just wants to be on the team. He just wants to be a part of an EYBL team and doesn't really get great information. My belief is that if you're not in the rotation, if you're not 8, 9, if you're not 9, and if you're a kid sitting on the end of that bench, how are you ever going to be seen? Like, especially by a school that really wants to see you. So if you're not getting playing time, if you're not getting the minutes that are necessary for you to be seen, it doesn't matter if you're EYBL, Under Armour, any of that. You need to go somewhere you can be seen and maybe even have a chance to be featured. Go somewhere you can get the minutes. Go get the minutes. Don't chase the logo.
It's a sliding
don't chase
scale.
the brand. Yes, absolutely.
Right. It's a sliding
absolutely.
scale. You need to know how to market yourself. And this is a tough decision for families, and there's no right or wrong answer. It's case by case. And you also need to know what type of player your kid is. If your kid is a great shooter, but is not a great, creator of shots, then it's better for him to maybe play on an EYBL team where he can find a niche of shooting the ball. But if your kid can really score, but there's a kid or two that's better on the EYBL team he's trying out for, well, it's probably best to go play for that other team. And, there's a team in Cincinnati that's existed for a long time. And I remember we were talking when I was with the Ohio Phenoms, Joe Fred and I were talking to a kid, and we were trying to get him, and he was thinking about playing for this other team. And I told him, if you're going to be the best player on that team, go play for them. Because the director of that program is going to bust his ass to make sure that the best player, maybe the best 2 players on that team, are going to get college exposure, but he's probably going to forget about a lot of the other kids. And, when we did the AAU with the Ohio Phenoms, now we try and do with the Lakers. And I know you do this with Ohio. It takes care of itself a little more easily maybe with the EYBL is, make sure that all your kids are getting appropriate looks for their level. But if you're going to choose to be a bench kid on the EYBL, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There's a niche for every kid, but it's certainly, you have to balance coming in with some type of reputation already where coaches already know about you because they are going to see you in a little bit more limited minutes. And then also, you've got to make the most of your opportunities because it gets real easy to say, well, this kid played 10 minutes this game. And unfortunately for him, he was matched against the kid who's a really big time high major kid. And he didn't look that great. We forget about him, but it's an interesting concept. I think it's an even more difficult decision for a kid who is a small town kid because you don't play against that high level competition, high level exposure events during the winter. So choosing an AAU program, becomes a little bit more difficult. So getting into that, when you are talking to these families, whether it's for a kid who's going to be probably a no-brainer starter or a kid who's going to be a role player, what are some of your real selling points on, why should I play for Ohio versus playing for my local team that's pretty good? You can use the Cincinnati Lakers. We've got a good team. We can offer exposure in terms of connections from Ricardo and myself and playing in solid events, but we can't offer EYBL exposure. And then as well as, how do you handle kids in terms of telling them what's the advantage of the EYBL when you have a kid who's already played on a circuit such as Adidas or Under Armour, but, you believe that the EYBL is a better opportunity?
Well, for me, it's as simple as what are their wants? See, every kid is different. Every kid that you could sit across from, every family is different. They have an agenda, and then they have something that they want to hold back from you because they don't know how it's going to be perceived. So as you build that relationship with these parents, as you build the relationship with the kids throughout the recruiting process, you want to find out what is it you want from your seasons, the 1, 2, 3 seasons of AAU. I tell them all the time, you've only got, once you start AAU in high school, you've only got 15 live sessions that they can see you. And that's probably going to change next year. We all know all this stuff going on. But you've only got 15 times these coaches can come out and see you. So we need to make the most out of these 15 times if you're with All Ohio. What is it you want? Like, what are your needs and what are your wants? And once I determine what their needs or wants is, then we kind of build off of there. But as a selling point, I tell them all the time, if you want to play the best of the best, this is where you want to be. If you're a competitor, if you're a kid who has to understand you have to play hard, you have to play tough, and more importantly, you have to want to know how to play with other good players, then this is where you want to be. I've been on the Adidas side of things. I've seen how it's run. It's not as organized as this is. It's not as competitive as this is. I believe that the top 5 or 6, maybe top 10 Adidas teams can compete on the EYBL circuit. But I think from there, it's a severe drop-off. So I tell them, if that's what you want, then this is where you need to be. But as far as exposure is concerned, I think that it's not even so much about exposure when you get to some of these shoe circuit teams. I think it's just a matter of going where you can be able to get out there, be seen by coaches who are in your area, coaches who, as we all know, you barely go to, most kids don't go to school 4 hours away from home. That's kind of like the radius of where they are. But if the camps are important to you, if you want a guy who wants the opportunity to play it, a couple of my kids, Dom Penn and John Hughley, just came from Elite 100. Well, Nike has those type of camps that are already for sophomores. We've got our Nike Basketball Academy that are for the top 25 kids, regardless of class. So Nike has a few different things that the other shoe circuits don't really have that can, for the elite kids, for the best of the best, that they can kind of offer to these kids that can really, kind of set them apart from other kids. I think you really want to see, you want to judge the kid from, is he a competitor? Does he want to win? Is it all about me? Is it all about getting better? It's so many different variables when you sit down across from a parent, because the parent, they want them to go to school, they want them to go to the highest level, but you get some parents, man, who just really honestly want their kid to get a free college education. That's all they want. Yeah.
But you know what? I hear you. But at the end of the day, though, with a lot of kids, if you're talking about a kid that's going to start in the EYBL for you guys, that kid's going to go to school for free no matter what. So it's really about, I remember talking to one of the guys who works for Nike, and you know who I'm talking about, but his Nike only wants him to answer so many questions. But he told me, we were talking about a kid who plays in the Big Ten. And he's from the Cleveland, Akron area. And he said, well, if this kid plays in the Nike EYBL, if this kid doesn't play in the Nike EYBL, he can go anywhere in the Big Ten. He's that good of a player. However, if he plays in the Nike EYBL, he can go anywhere in the Big Ten. He can also go to Arizona, UCLA, Kentucky, Florida. You're going to get all those out-of-region opportunities, and you're going to get some more of that type of stuff. And, and then some kids ultimately, for whatever reason, decide that I'm not going to play on a shoe circuit. So, when you have kids who are really good players, guys who would be major impact guys for you, that decide not to play for you, and they don't play for our OBC, they don't play for C2K or another circuit team in or out of Ohio, what are some of the reasons you ultimately hear for why kids decide not to take on the circuit?
Some of them,
especially at the 17 and under level.
Some of them tell me the loyalty. The loyalty lies with this coach. This coach has done so much for me. They've been with this team for so many years, and they just don't want to leave the team. They're comfortable. And that's what is comfortable. And I tell the kids all the time, well, when are you going to get comfortable with being uncomfortable? Every situation can't be handcrafted. Every situation can't be carved out for your comfort level. You have to start pushing yourself, because if you do have aspirations of playing at the next level, then you're going to start your career off uncomfortable, because you come in not being the man most of the time when you're a freshman. 95% of the time when you're a freshman, unless you're in that elite category, Marvin Bagley, et cetera, et cetera. So when are you going to find a situation where you're going to be comfortable being uncomfortable? And that's a tough thing for some kids who've had it kind of carved out for them, a la LeVar Ball type situation, that everything fits their needs, and you don't really get to see that. But those are some of the things that you have. They've been with that non-shoe team forever. They got a loyalty to the coach. And the family, the travel teams are just like a family. They've been families for years, and they don't want to break up the band. So it's tough, especially when you got elite kids. I mean, there are some in this 19 class that we felt like, who were non-shoe kids this year that could have helped us tremendously. But for one reason or another, just decided to go in a different direction. And you respect it, but you also realize that, unless they've got somebody like you or Ricardo in their corner, it's going to be tough for them to be able to be seen by the high majors outside of the area. Just like you just said, Nike provides a platform where you can be seen nationwide, Adidas, Under Armour as well. You're not going to get that playing in non-big tournaments like that, or not be able to see not a non-shoe company. So
I agree. And I think, the reason I don't, Ricardo and I don't really deserve a lot of credit other than putting the team together that we had last year where those kids earned so many scholarship opportunities. But the reason that the three kids who we had really did earn those opportunities, I've been very vocal about this, is those kids are kind of alpha male kids, and they take it upon themselves to be like, we really want to play the shoe circuit teams. And when we do, we want to show them what we can do. They're going to take it to the point of really leading that team, which was my team. And, I said I have pictures of one of them, the kid Joey Edmonds that played at Wyoming. And, we called timeout one time and they were playing boxing one on him. And he said, let me see the clipboard, coach. And, he's drawing up the play and everything. I mean, those are the type of kids we had. And, if you can be that alpha male kid and show, well, this isn't a team, this is my team, I think the college coaches look at that differently than, well, this is just kind of a situation built for this kid and he's just kind of getting up and down. He's not really showing that true competitive aspect of his game. But the concept of the loyalty thing is one of the toughest conversations in AAU. And I give ND Kendrick a ton of credit for being selfless enough to having built Pocket City and then taking his team over to Eric Gordon. There's very, very few guys that will be willing to give up their brand name like that for the kids. And, it's tough as a coach. If you've had a kid for a number of years, you always feel like you can do best for that kid because you know him so well. I get that concept entirely. And at the same time, though, sometimes you got to say, if I'm playing on a small circuit, I got to tell that kid, hey, I can still be a part of your life. I can still train you. I can still help you with recruitment and whatnot, but you need to go on and play with this team because that's going to give you the best exposure opportunity. And, there's also the, college coaches, it's not an effort thing. It's just a practicality thing where, if I got to go 10, 12 miles off site to go watch a kid play, and I'm not guaranteed he's going to play against great competition. I'm not guaranteed he's going to play with other very good players on his team, or I can go watch these 2 or 3 kids that are just as good as him play in an EYBL or an Under Armour game. Of course, they're going to go with the easier option because it gives them more opportunities to get both quality and quantity of evaluations. And I think that's what some families maybe don't understand sometimes.
Yeah, and that's, that to me is giving parents good information, whether you choose me or not. The thing I tell a parent is this, that one, if you decide to go in a different route, the first thing I'm going to do when I see you is shake your hand, ask you how everything is going, and is there anything I can do for you, whether or not you chose me or not. You spoke on, pushing the kid away. Jordan Law, when I coached Team Toledo, was my second best or best player after 15U. 16U, all Ohio Red at the time came calling. And I never forget, me and his dad are sitting there after a high school game. Me and his dad are sitting there, and he's like, Coach, I think we got to go. I said, I know you got to go. I know you got to go to all Ohio Red because we can't do for you what you can do. And we sat there and we had a few alcoholic beverages and shed some tears. And I asked him, how the hell am I going to get home from Napoleon, Ohio, down to Toledo without getting a DUI? So it was.
And that's another kid. That's another kid that I was talking about before with Jordan Loft. That, had a great career at Toledo, but Jordan is a small town kid, so his exposure opportunity, and he plays. Even there's some really good high school programs where he's from. I think his high school is an average one, not one of the real standout ones from up there. So his high school exposure opportunity is extremely limited. Yes. So right, he's a kid. He had to make the most out of every single. You talked about having 15 events. He had to make the most out of every one of those 15 events if he was going to get recruited at the level that he was capable of, because he was clearly a good enough player to have, the dozen or maybe more than that Division I offers that he ended up having.
Yeah, we got a guy, Tanner Holden, goes to Wheelersburg. I mean, how many Division I coaches going to stop through Williamsburg to see kids? Like, so
One, Marshall, who says
right.
Marshall's right by
Marshall.
him. That's the only
Right.
one.
So
Yeah.
that's the type of situation right there where he had joined the circuit and has had a pretty good year this year. So it's just one of those things. The parents have to outweigh the good and the bad and kind of figure out what's best for them. And you don't hold it against a parent if they decide not to go with you. But you also know that when they may come back to you asking for help, and as somebody who my number one goal is try to help kids get in school. You always reach out and try to help them if you can. So
right. I mean, when I do AAU, I try to be honest with kids on who to play for and who not to play for. And I'm not afraid to say to a kid or a family, hey, I want you to play for me. Now, if you don't play for me, here are the options that I would recommend. And I'm not afraid to tell them, I think, hey, if you play for this team, I'm going to tell you right now, a year from now, you're going to be calling me saying, I wish I played for you or the other team you mentioned because I'm sitting here and I'm just being honest. I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about who you think I'm talking about, but I'm talking about some of these local teams because you end up having no college looks.
Hold on, Corey. Who do you think? Never mind. We're not even going to go down that road today. We're not even going to go down that road today.
That's for a future podcast. We got to build the audience, and then we'll really take the shots at who I want to take the shots. It's all a grand plan here, kid. But it's all about that. You do have to make the decision as to who can do the most for you. I had another point, but now I lost it because you got me thinking about people I don't like, and you got my blood pressure up and shit. That's what Tuck does for me, man. This is what I wanted to tell you. This is what I'm saying. So the other piece of that puzzle with a kid like a Tanner Holden, or for anybody who might remember Jordan Loft that's listening, is you also get to play a different type of basketball. What I mean is this, so Tanner Holden is 6'5". He's probably the tallest player on his high school team by several inches, but he also has to play all 5 positions in high school. He's got to take a lot of the shots. It's one evaluation, and then you get him on the AU circuit. You see his versatility. You see his ability to be a role player, be a facilitator, be a rebounder. He plays a different type of game. Another example, I talked earlier about I had the kid Joey Edmonds who's committed to Finley, played for me last year, and talking to his mom at a high school game this year. The high school team had graduated a lot of guys, so now Joey's getting double teamed. They're running a triangle and 2, and both the guys are guarding Joey. So it becomes like not even a basketball game for him anymore. It's such a sloppy, different form of basketball as what pure basketball is. So she was like, and unfortunately he's been a little bit banged up, so he hasn't gotten to play, but she was just like, well, we're so ready for AAU just so he can play real basketball again. He can play his real point guard instead of having to shoot all the balls and everything. So, that's one of the great things about AAU. The last thing I want to talk to you about, Tuck, is this. Talking to one of the legendary Cincinnati AAU coaches, Trey Potter. And Trey always tells me, for years, his line has always been, I could coach high school, but I choose to coach AAU because I like being around the better players. And I think, he feels like his niche in the coaching is to help good players become great players to go on to college. So, what makes you, I know you're getting back into the high school thing this year, but in terms, your basketball energy obviously goes towards all Ohio. Why do you choose AAU over JUCO options or high school options?
Well, for me, it's always been the opportunity to help a bunch of different kids from all over different areas. But you got to think, even Trey, before you even had the good players, you were just helping out players that were in your area. Being with a shoe company now, I can help more kids from all different areas, and it allows me to help the area that's kind of become home to me in Cincinnati. It allows me to go back to Toledo, where I got my start, if there's a good player there. And it allows me to go back to my hometown of Cleveland and be able to help kids. So AAU for me, I love the competitiveness. I think that AAU coaches get a bad rap because I tell somebody all the time, we don't have as many practices as high school coaches. We don't have as much time to prepare and watch film as high school coaches. We have to make a lot of adjustments on the fly and parking lots in between our 2 hours between games. To, how do you beat Mean Streets at 8 and then come back and take over at 11? That would be considered. How do you beat Moeller at 8 and then come back and beat a Princeton or somebody at 11. So I don't see high school coaches having to go through that. And it keeps you as a coach. It keeps you fresh. It keeps you sharp because you're getting a new set of kids usually every 3 years. If you stay with the team, you see them all the way through, and then it's a new group of kids coming up. So for me, it's exciting.
You get to worry a little bit about more what you want to do. And so like when I coach AAU, I'm worried about here's how we want to defend, and I'm not super worried about their personnel. Here's how we defend against different things, and we're going to focus more on us as opposed to, preparation in high school basketball is great. You get a lot of life lessons for kids there. But, focusing on you as a team is great team building, as is the whole travel aspect. And, it's nice being around like-minded kids. And I'll never forget this is I've been coaching AAU for a long time. We were starting the Phenoms. We had all these guys who were going on to play college basketball, and I got offered the opportunity. I was working for Only Rivals, so I had a lot of free time during the afternoons. And the AD over at Summit, where I went to high school, was like, well, here, come coach our 8th grade team for the winter. I'll throw some extra money in your pocket. You'll have fun with it. I thought it was going to be a great thing for me. And then for the first time in my life, I had kids who were, fun kids to deal with, and I wanted to be good. But I was dealing with kids who their goal wasn't just to play college basketball. Their goal was to, let's play 8th grade basketball and have some fun. And, to me, it was like, wow, God, I hate this. I'm so used to playing, and it's not that the kids didn't give effort, but it's such a different experience where at AAU everybody has a common goal, and it's we want to win as a team, but we're all trying to do this, and we all have a realistic chance if we're in this AAU program to go to play in college basketball. I tell my kids in AAU all the time is I think I know how to evaluate. I don't recruit bad players, so if you're on my team, you're on my team for a reason. So you're a good player, act like it.
Yeah, I was saying I want basketball players, not kids who play basketball. So, kids who play basketball in the wintertime, and then in the spring they want to do all these other things. No, I want basketball players. So if I find basketball players, then we're going to be in position for success. So.
Okay. Well, that's perfect, man. That's about all the time we have. Tuck, I appreciate you coming on. Certainly known you for a long time back when we did the UC Bearcat camps when I was a manager at Cincinnati State. Known you from doing AAU. Followed you, going to continue to follow you. Certainly become one of the most respected guys. One of the guys who college coaches are always telling me, hey, I talked to Tuck about this kid or that kid. Do you agree or disagree with his sentiment on it? And, you've also certainly pushed my service to other guys out there. So thanks for coming on. We'll definitely look forward to, having you on at a future date.
Appreciate it, man. Next time I want to get on with TJ because I want to know why he won't let me get any Michigan kids. He's up there
everybody. It's such a long list. Everybody wants on with TJ. So, but hey, guys, that was the latest episode of the Triple Double podcast. My name's Corey Albertson. We had Jason Morrow from 270 Hoops. Here is our producer. We had Corey Tucker, a.k.a. Coach Tuck from All Ohio Red, Nike EYBL. Thanks for listening, guys. Tuck, I appreciate it, brother. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
Thanks, Corey.